There's obviously a lot of confusion around the path to leveling up as a marketer when it comes
Yeah.
to AI.
I've changed all my one-on-one templates. And now one of the top 5 things we check in on is how is your team using AI this week? It often kicks off natural threads where people will do little show and shares.
How do you spot AI literacy when you're thinking of hiring?
You can't really hire for this experience, right? This is a really interesting paradoxical moment. It reminds me of when I worked in mobile technology and iPhone apps flew up and everyone was looking for 3 years of iPhone app development when the App Store had been in market for 18 months. It doesn't work that way. So you're going to have to give people experience. And with that comes this sort of humility to know that some of that experience is going to be throwaway.
What's up, everyone? Today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Alison Albeck Lindland, CMO at Movable Ink. Alison's been at Movable Ink for a whopping 13 years, rising through customer success, founding the company's now influential customer strategy team, and stepping into the CMO role nearly 3 years ago. In this episode, we explore how to build AI literacy in your marketing teams and how to spot AI literacy when you're hiring marketers. We also cover AI point solutions versus platforms, how to measure and maximize the ROI of video podcasts, and why a customer strategy team can drive enterprise growth. All that and a bunch more stuff after a super quick word from one of our awesome partners.
This episode is brought to you by Revenue Hero. You've invested thousands in your marketing funnel, targeted the right ICP, spent weeks A/B testing, and optimized for conversion at every step. Finally, a high-intent prospect fills out your demo form, and then nothing. Your nurtured lead sits in a queue while you chase them with, "How's Thursday at 2 p.m.?" Meanwhile, your competitor is already on a discovery call. That's not just frustrating, that's revenue walking away. With Revenue Hero, you can qualify, route, and book leads with the right rep, so your team can start real conversations right away. For the ops folks listening, Revenue Hero syncs meeting data to your CRM, auto-credits no-shows, recalibrates when reps go on vacation, and has a ton of smart features you won't find anywhere else. If you're spending to drive demand, don't lose it at the last mile. Visit revenuehero.io/demo today.
Alison, thank you so much for your time today. Really excited to chat.
It's a gorgeous day here in New York City, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Gorgeous day in Ottawa here as well. Can't complain. I wanted to let you kind of set the stage a little bit here, Allison. Wanted to get caught up on the product a little bit. When I first discovered Movable Ink, it was a way to allow marketers to change emails after they had actually been sent out. But I know the product has changed and expanded a ton now, right?
Yeah, so that's a great, I think, early definition of what we did and kind of what we got to be known for by a lot of people. But we're an almost 15-year-old company now, which is pretty exciting. And essentially what we are is a SaaS platform that combines AI-powered content decisioning and then automated content generation. And what people at home might know us for is for co-creating emails like the Spotify Wrapped. But what they don't know is that we're powering hundreds of the world's leading brands' emails and mobile messages, and we're essentially automating that production process that is really a vestige of the print production process. And then we're creating those hyper-personalized one-to-one emails, whether they're year in review or new arrivals. And yes, like you said, we're changing the content after it's been deployed. And all of that is significantly improving the performance of these email and mobile marketing programs and driving a lot of revenue and growth for these companies.
And 13 years that you've been at Movable Ink now, right?
Yes, it's been
Whoa.
such an exciting ride.
You're the antithesis for a lot of folks that say the CMO is the shortest tenure in the C-suite.
Well, I've had sort of 3 key phases to my time here, and I've only been in the CMO role for a little under 3 years. And that's, I think, just a whole separate experience coming up through customer success, creating the strategy team, which is now more and more prevalent at SaaS companies, which I'm really proud that we were very early on. And then moving over to marketing. And it's not been the same company for more than 6 months at a time. And then I've had all these different roles along the way. So that's made it really interesting.
I love that. So let's get into the questions.
Yeah.
So, Allison, you're the CMO of an AI Martech company,
Mm.
which is super trending and like very hot. It's also kind of meta.
It's very, very
Um,
meta. Yes.
so what advice do you have for up and coming marketers, CMOs that might want a job like yours in the future? And what advice do you have for marketers to help future proof their careers?
Yes. So my first thought is pretty AI agnostic, which is that you just have to know your customers. And when I say that, I don't mean on a spreadsheet or via Tableau. You have to know them actually personally and pretty intimately because you've got to be constantly advocating for their perspective around the table. And on this front, product marketing is going to be a really good ally in this. But at the end of the day, you're bringing those campaigns to market, and you should be the one who can say with authority, this isn't going to land, and here's why. And alternately, you should be able to pick up the phone or start a text thread late at night and validate ideas or thesis before you go to market and get that input from those clients who you have those direct relationships with pretty quickly.
I almost wonder too if it's not a good idea to do marketing at a company that maybe you're not interested in the product and you're not interested in the customers. I think you're going to do a disservice to both.
I do think there has to be that authentic connection where you're either very enamored with the problem that you're trying to solve or the industry that you're serving. That I do think that there has to be more than just a sort of academic curiosity about it, or it's going to read as such. And we spend a lot of time now trying to bring our team members in close contact with our customers in more than just a servicing capacity where they're just hosting events. I host quarterly fireside chats where CMOs come and talk. We have a customer advisory board that meets and it's hybrid, so it's easy for us to kind of rotate in people who are just sort of taking notes and lurking. We're constantly hosting events in this beautiful office here. We've got events all around the country, and we're very strategic about placing people in those events, not just to support the actual program, but to really develop like personal relationships with people that will inform the work that they're doing, whether it's content marketing, events, ABM, et cetera. But these can't just be abstract ICPs. These need to be individuals because the secret to our success has been how we drive marketers' careers forward by using our software. And then as they've progressed in their careers, they've taken us with them. And as they've changed companies, they've taken us with them. So it's really important that we just stay close to the issues that they're struggling with as things have evolved and continue to evolve so quickly.
I love your answer, Allison, because it's refreshing in a sense. Everyone has like a take on how AI is displacing, and there's a lot of fear and uncertainty and doubt with marketers in their careers when we ask this question of like, how do you future-proof your career? And I like that you kind of grounded it in the foundations of like understanding your customers and understanding the product, regardless of how crazy AI is going to be. It feels like there's always going to be that like foundational element to understanding the customers and the product. And I feel like PMMs are a really interesting spot in there. Like Daryl and I had an episode about what roles are really well positioned for this future of AI wave, what roles are a bit more kind of at risk. And one of the ones that we highlighted was PMMs and customer marketing pros, lifecycle pros that are like spending their time understanding the pain points of customers, bringing that back to the marketing team and just like improving campaigns and stuff like that.
Totally. And I loved that episode, by the way. It was great. So our PMM team, which I've had the pleasure of leading in prior years, is just incredibly well-oiled machine. And they do a lot of things like win-loss interviews, working on different archetypes. And the win-loss program has been just so illuminating for us on a regular basis with the things that we're being sort of lauded for, and then the things that we're maybe falling down on and could improve on pretty quickly if we just focused on them. So, but it's so interesting. It's not data that shows up in surveys. We do surveys, of course, as well. And then we're constantly surveying people after they attend our events, but getting in and having a really honest, long form, free and open conversation with a marketer can absolutely change your perspective very quickly.
Super cool. So I've got this one idea that's kind of percolating in my head a little bit about this pyramid of AI literacy. And we've got the CMO of an AI company here. So I feel like it's a really cool opportunity to have you like poke holes here and maybe kind of improve that.
Mm.
So there's obviously a lot of confusion around the path to leveling up as a marketer when it comes
Yeah.
to AI and this idea of AI literacy. Like, where do we start? When do we know that we're kind of, in the 10% or whatever? So
Yeah.
I took a first stab at it. For the folks watching on YouTube, we'll just like put it up on the screen. But I'd love to just like go through it and have you kind of like poke holes at it. Let me know what you think about it.
Perfect.
So the first level is basic exposure to LLMs. Like, you've used a couple of AI tools. You don't really have a grasp of what's under the hood, but you kind of played around with it. The second one is prompting and tool proficiency. So you're starting to, get a bit more dangerous in understanding how do you improve the results, the output by structuring your prompts across different use cases. Level 3 is you're starting to understand like model literacy, maybe a good way to put it. Like, what are LLMs? Like, what is it that I'm actually using here? How do they work? How are they different from machine learning? What's the difference between ML and NLP? And then maybe level 4 is machine learning and systems fluency. So you're kind of taking a bit of a higher level grasp on how AI can connect to data, workflows, broadening ML concepts, and then maybe like level 5. I was kind of like not sure what to put for level 5, but there's like this thing about strategic and ethical applications when it comes to being the person who's leading AI discussions, not just like suggesting tools and being the person that just like suggests stuff versus leading those discussions with like clarity, challenging the hype, not being like shiny object syndrome type person, but like guiding responsible adoption. What do you think of those 4 levels? Is there another one in there? Poke holes at that.
No, I think those are really intuitive. I would suggest maybe that fifth piece come a little bit earlier. First of all, I think one thing that we're seeing so often at our client organizations who are primarily B2C marketers, some of whom have been your guests on the show, like Angela, Roida at Meta, that they are working within these really complex organizations. And so having that shared organizational perspective around the strategy and the ethics and the data, and to a certain extent also the tools themselves is so foundational, right? That you need to have that enablement to make sure that you're all singing from the same songbook and that you don't have these pocketed different teams approaching AI separately, either in ways that are just straight up non-compliant, and you're going to find out pretty shortly that after a lot of investment and training, you're going to get that thing taken away from you, or that they're just oppositional to broader goals of the organization. So I do think that enablement piece is so foundational, and that it has to be like across the entire enterprise. And we're only a 600-person company, but we've done a great job of that, from our GCO to our CFO. To operations, making sure that we're all using the same tools. And that's the second piece, which is tools, making sure that you've got enterprise procured tools. So I think you have that in there sort of within like 2 to 4, but that you're all using the same tools and that you're not building these little fiefdoms of knowledge on tools that might be fun to use at an individual level, like ChatGPT is great. Who doesn't love OpenAI? But we as a company are using Elvex, which is essentially a wrapper. Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. And they give you access to Claude and Gemini all in one place, but you can build a lot more institutional knowledge. And so I think that is also really fundamental. And then, of course, the last thing is what you astutely noted, it's experience. You can't really hire for this experience, right? This is a really interesting paradoxical moment. It reminds me of when I worked in mobile technology and iPhone apps flew up and everyone was looking for like 3 years of iPhone app development when the App Store had been in market for 18 months. It doesn't work that way. So you're going to have to give people experience. And with that comes this sort of humility to know that some of that experience is going to be throwaway. It's just going to be to give people that muscle to talk about the failures they've had and to know how they're going to iterate and to share those learnings. You have to have a forum to share those learnings regularly. So the way that we use Elvex is really, I think, pretty impressive for a company of our size. We have 2 business analysts on our ops team who are dedicated to building custom apps to support our business goals. And we've got apps on the marketing team that we've got built that really help us on a daily basis. So for example, Maeve is our archetype. She's our dream ICP. She's mid-40s SVP of marketing at a B2C brand. And we have a lot of content around who she is, what her brand voice is, a lot of documents that sort of inform that otherwise the team would go to manually to check their content against. So we built a Maeve app. And now every piece of content that you're seeing, whether it's on social media, whether it's the session, sort of blurbs that you're seeing on the Think Summit website, they've all been run through that app to make sure that it's a really consistent brand voice. We've got other cool apps that are meant for the rest of the organization, like a content marketing search bot. So instead of going out just searching our blog for the most relevant content, if you're working with a financial services prospect or OTA prospect, you can just go in and natural language, talk to it like you're talking to someone on the content marketing team and say like, hey, what's the latest short form content that I can send to someone for top of funnel to get them to attend Think Summit? And it's right there. So it's been really a game changer for how we work, and shocking how quickly it's become a part of our day to day.
Super cool. How do you spot AI literacy in your team, from a performance standpoint, maybe, or when you're thinking of hiring? Like you just said, it's hard to say we want someone with 5 years of experience using LLMs for marketing use cases. So how do you kind of ask that in interview questions?
Yeah, I think first of all, you just have to look for curiosity and people who are happy to jump in and try new things without knowing that they've got years and years of experience, but they're inspired by that. So I often ask people what are you personally trying out on the side? What are you advocating for internally? And then we have I've changed all my one-on-one templates. I started this at the top of the year to include, not just the sort of standard things that I have in there, which is what can I unblock? What's going well? What do you need help on? And now one of the top 5 things we check in on is, how is your team using AI this week? And then we start our weeks with a really nice ritual that I've used for teams that I've managed for probably 10 years, which is we share our top 3 of 5 goals for the week. And then we also put in something fun that we did this weekend, just a little personal, connection. But then we've added to that, how have you been using AI recently? And then from that, it often kicks off natural threads where people are saying, oh, you know what? I've been meaning to try that LFX app, or I was thinking about trying that tool. And then we'll pull items from those discussions into our marketing team weekly meeting, and people will do little show and shares. And we really try and have a culture on the marketing team and at Movable Ink where we can be honest about dead ends, things that didn't work out, just interesting lessons. We once did a really fun team building exercise with a coach that we've worked with as a company called Jeff Flowers. He's terrific. And one of the exercises he did had us do this fun on our feet exercise where we're remembering all this choreography and passing a ball around. And every time you sort of made a mistake with your choreography, you had to say I made a mistake, and everyone applauded for you. So instead of that feeling of your prickly, embarrassment taking over your body, you knew that if you made a mistake, you were going to be applauded by your whole team and everyone was going to cheer for you. And so we even do that. We mimic that on Slack when people will share things. And now we really try and encourage in our QBRs to talk about what are your made a mistake moments. So when we share out in our team meetings about how we're experimenting with AI, we encourage people to share those things that really didn't work out. But was there anything in there that you can use and extract as you're going forward?
So cool. So cool. Yeah, I think we're in an interesting time now because so much is changing. And I think that in the past, it used to be how can we be more strategic? What's the ultimate mission? How can we map out the next 5 to 10 years? And now it really seems like the best teams are focusing on agility. How can, what if in the next 3 months, another big change happens? What happens in another 6 months if the company goals change? We have to be ready. And I think that, some folks have trouble with that sort of uncertainty. But I think it sounds like your team is really embracing new technology. And I think that's, I love that question. How are you using AI this week?
No,
So-
I think I was just going to
Go
say
ahead.
that agility is really something that is so key, because I think when you're in the business that we are, the sort of core asset that we're delivering to our prospects at any given time is value. Where's the value in our piece of content, in this event, in this website that you're going to interact with? And we have to be very closely attuned to the issues of the day. And those are evolving faster than ever for a multitude of reasons. And so it can't be about our agenda. We can't be saying, gosh, you know what? On October 25th, we're launching this product and we want to talk about it. And that's our priority. If things change with tariffs, if other exogenous events happen, like with iOS 18, we are going to be there to respond to the things that we're hearing our clients and our prospects talking about in the field. But you have to have a feedback loop internally to capture that. And that's a role that our strategy team has played so masterfully.
Yeah. And that's why I like that, the Mave avatar that you have, because I think so many companies, and you can see this countless examples, in strategy meetings of like, this is what we want to tell customers. This is what we want the customers to do. But it's like the reverse question of like, what do the customers want to learn about? What value do they want to have? And if you have this sort of avatar that you're thinking about all the time, and I do the same thing when I think about my content. I think about, the marketing ops manager that's hands on keyboard and what do they want to do and what struggles do they have, and it's not like what I want to tell them. It's like what they want to learn. But anyway, I'd love to get into like some of this, like talking about AI testing tools. And you mentioned your team's doing that. How do you think about, because there's a variety. I know you mentioned LVEX. Can you give us like another example of AI testing and like what's your mental model around making sure your team is always like experimenting with new tools, always learning? Is there like 20% time or something? Like how do you think about that?
Yeah, I wish it was that prescribed, but we're really trying to foster a culture where people just think, as you approach any new task, how is AI going to enable me to get this done better and faster and potentially make it a little more enjoyable to do? So one of the tools that we're playing with now is called Spark. It's a concierge like event marketing tool. And essentially it includes a whole host of different templates for different types of events you're creating. And events are a really important part of our go-to-market motion. And so we're constantly coming up with concepts for different formats, different targeting rules. And then there's all of the documentation that comes out of, each of them, whether they're executive events or broad scale enablement events or roundtable forums. And this essentially prompts you, once you create a little bit of a summary, it kind of creates a lot of those documents automatically. And then it will help you iterate on them. Like, okay, this is actually for the C-suite. So here's how the language is going to change. And this is the date. So now we're going to cascade the project management tools. So we're not ready to turn our entire process over to them by any means, but it's just a huge unlock in terms of thinking about the things that we can automate and get there faster with.
This episode is brought to you by MoEngage and their new warehouse native CEP, which revolutionizes the way data should be seamlessly fetched, analyzed, and activated. Now you can use MoEngage Cloud Data Sync to sync your warehouse data with MoEngage and use it to segment audiences or personalize messages without any development. Just set and forget. Use MoEngage warehouse segments to create segments on your warehouse data without moving underlying events, properties, or proprietary segmentation logic, and activate them directly on MoEngage. Using warehouse data analytics, brands can also directly generate insights from their warehouse data. Your long search solution for seamless data sync, smarter segmentation, dynamic personalization, and delightful customer experiences ends here. Warehouse native CEP from MoEngage, making it easy, smart, and secure. Learn more at moengage.com. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Knack. I have the amazing pleasure of chatting with some of the greatest minds in marketing operations, but you'd be shocked at how many of them have the same issues when it comes to their campaign creation process. They're dealing with things like scaling, personalization, keeping assets on brand, render testing emails, working in rigid templates, and worst of all, having to hand code emails. But many of the leaders in the space are using Knack to eliminate these headaches. Knack is a no-code email and landing page creation platform that covers initial campaign requests right until the sync to your marketing automation platform. Knack improves the whole campaign creation process by bringing the building, optimization, testing, collaboration, and also translation functions all in a single spot. So you don't have to jump around and coordinate feedback between a bunch of different people or wait on developers for very simple edits. Because at the end of the day, marketing ops folks want to focus on process and efficiency. Marketers want to focus on creativity, and Knack makes sure you get both and then some. Check them out at knack.com. That's KNAK, and tell them we sent you. I feel like you could argue that a lot of the AI apps that are coming out, especially the newer ones, are like a bit more point solutions, kind of. A lot of them are like vendor agnostic in a way, like they're not part of a platform suite, so to speak. Maybe one day they will, as like the cycle of innovation happens in Martech. But I have this question related to this. Like Movable Ink often integrates with like big platforms like Salesforce, Adobe, and Mowing Gauges of the world. But it's like not really a point solution. Maybe it was at first, but with like 150 million in revenue and unicorn valuation there, you've proven that this idea of a platform agnostic approach focused on personalization and automation can be super successful. Like you guys are kind of proof of that. How do you address this perception that only all-in-one platforms can solve marketers' biggest problems and that anything else is just kind of extra noise and distracting marketers from what's most important? I feel like Movable Ink seems to like challenge that assumption entirely, right?
I mean, I think the reason that we exist is because the other solutions in your stack were really built to solve different problems. So either they were built to focus on the data side of the house, like the CRM, the data warehouse, CDPs, which people have invested like untold billions into over the past probably, let's call it a decade or so, or they're just pure play delivery. So they're like an ESP, MSP, or like a CMS system or something. And none of those were designed to automatically generate personalized content at scale, which is in fact a really critical piece in that value chain. Like if you're going to activate all that data to create one-to-one experiences, you need to have the content. And we've got tons of research that shows, I think something like 90% of marketers think that they just don't have the content to get the sort of the investment of in their data infrastructure, and that it takes them something like close to 6 hours to create every individual piece of content. Because if you think about the large enterprise approval value chain, it's not just the designer touching this stuff. It's, got to be then the marketer and then probably a lawyer and then maybe somebody in compliance. And that's even if you're not in a regulated industry. So the ability to take pre-approved assets and combine them automatically in the end user's either inbox or on their mobile device using the guardrails that the brand has set forth is just totally transformational to these enterprise marketers who are, again, really looking to activate that data that they've invested those maybe not personally billions, but collectively billions in, and see that benefit to their end user so that they feel really seen by that brand. And that's where you get the loyalty that brands are really focused on unlocking these days.
Can you expand a little bit on the like legal approval part? Because that's actually a challenge for us.
Sure.
Everything has to go through legal. So you're saying like pre-approved like modules that make it so that they can just approve all of them in one at all
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
different parts of flavors of a campaign
Exactly. Like
at one
essentially
time?
creating layered images using pre-approved, totally on brand, created by that wonderful partner agency, taking those elements and then creating that one-to-one content. So it might be in the form of sort of an image lockup of new arrival items just from the website, or it could be that beautiful Spotify Wrapped, or if you want to translate that to other brands like Delta, it's your year in review, or American Express, it's, your first year with the card. And it's showcasing all those beautiful elements in a very on-brand, stylized, not, merged in horrible like web-safe fonts, expression of that brand where it feels like it's a coffee table book of the brand that's just been created for you. And you would never know that this was automatically created and that there are millions of iterations of this now out in the wild that all tell a different story because of the way that it looks and feels.
Got it. Got it. No, I love that. And I think that that's going to be really helpful in terms of, I think that especially for enterprise companies, people underestimate how long the approvals take.
I mean,
And
our biggest challenge in the first few years was helping people understand that the opportunity to change the email after it was launched was a huge benefit and to limit the anxiety around that and how to sell it in within their own organizations. And as B2B marketers, you're not just selling to your signatory, you're selling to everybody that they need to convince, right? So you need to create materials for their legal counsel, for their risk teams, and help them understand how the evolution of this technology is not creating more risk, but it's essentially helping meet their business needs and their goals and do so faster, more efficiently, and that there are guardrails to make sure that nothing goes wrong in the process.
I love that. Very cool. So let's shift gears here a little bit and let's talk about, kind of like the CMO's role. So, CMOs, I forget the tenure now. It's like every 2 years, 18 months, it's the CMO, like it's like a revolving door. And, one possibility is that companies are expecting CMOs to deliver results really quickly. And do you believe that's true? And when a CMO is challenged to, hey, we want, a direct response type results, we want to drive, top line revenue, quarter over quarter, how do you kind of shift? How should CMOs think about explaining or sharing with their board and the rest of the C-suite that there's a longer term play here and that relationship with customers is actually what's more valuable? Is it a balance? Like, what could you riff on that for us a little bit?
So I think that, the first piece is that you have to have partnership from the entire go-to-market organization because selling is a team sport. And when you're in a marketing role in a B2B company, you're effectively, the front of house for the sales team, right? And you need to have trusts and open lines of communication with all of those stakeholders, whether it's the outbounding team, product marketing, product itself even, and make sure that you are all aligned on what the goals are. We have a really clear mandate on our team. We're goaled on pipeline and opportunities and obviously sort of calls booked, so MQLs, and make sure that there's a scorecard that everybody believes and has that kind of like trust in, that no one's trying to throw anybody under the bus, make anybody look bad, that you're just tracking the metrics so that you can make sure you're understanding your contribution to the business and you're all working towards the same goals. Then I think the next piece is having the opportunity to tell bigger stories. Like I mentioned, we've had a lot of clients take us with them from multiple jobs. So putting some data behind that and then saying, where's the opportunity here to really double down on this? And can we, prove that there's some delta in performance if we really invest in these clients and in them personally? Because, I'm always of the opinion that companies don't buy software, people do. And that has been, again, really successful approach overall for us.
I've got a fun question related to that kind of idea that, we sell to people. I know you're really big on, having thoughts about building direct human relationships and thinking long term versus that like direct response kind of angle that Daryl kind of teased out with like maybe why the CMO tenure is a little short. In 2020, your team launched Ink Tank, a podcast, a video podcast series for marketers. And you mentioned that it was super gratifying, but ultimately after 21 episodes, the call was to shut it down because you couldn't assign or associate pipeline with it. I feel like that decision might go a little bit against like some of your thoughts on building human relationships, thinking more long term versus just direct response. Like, do you think that after just 21 episodes, it was a bit premature to say that like none of that is going to lead to pipeline at some day?
Sure.
Just curious your thoughts there.
And I think that notionally we all believed it was a great thing to do. And it was certainly, like you mentioned, it was gratifying. It was fun. It was so wonderful to celebrate the careers and the stories of these marketers. But, you sort of have to look at that unit of effort that you have within your team. And 2021 versus now was a little bit of a different ballgame in terms of the technology that's available and how quickly and easily we could get these to market and probably assign some sort of tracking measurement to it, whether with a code or something. But we felt like we could have similar outcomes with other types of video content. And we have since really had an explosion in our testimonial motion. And that has been another great forum for us to tell those stories in a shorter format that is viewed by exponentially more people, many of whom we can track. We also do something that we call like hero videos, where we go on site and we film them in their headquarters. We often incorporate B-roll into that. And these are the types of videos that then get played internally at their town halls, their global town halls, right? Because it's telling usually the story of a tech transformation and a huge company milestone, something that everybody is really excited about. So video as a medium is very impactful in our selling motion. Whether a video podcast where we were filming these sort of long form and doing tremendous amount of research, you guys know this is not something you can do with margins. It just took a lot more work than we felt we had the capacity to manage. It's absolutely something we might revisit again in the future. But for now, video continues to be like the thing that we learned from that. And I'm so glad we have such a great in-house video team. I'm so grateful. It's led by Lindy Gerber. And we continue to kind of outdo ourselves. We've got some great ones coming up at Think Summit Europe. So stay tuned. They'll be online soon.
Awesome. I really appreciate your answer. I feel like most teams, most like corporate teams that are just like, you know what, everyone's launching a podcast.
Yeah.
We're just going to launch a podcast. Let's do it. Like, if they can do it, we can do it. A couple episodes in, they're just like, this is like a couple of people's full-time jobs.
It's a whole separate business. And again, I think that we just were not assured that we were getting the right eyeballs on it almost to merit the level of the content we were producing. We had some incredible guests, and I'm still so proud of that work, but we continue to showcase these people just in a different channel.
And there's also like a long tail to like these investments, right? And like I like the customer and testimonial pivot there because those live on YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube has a wild, crazy algorithm and it changes all the time. And I'm in analytics on our show all the time. And I just like recently saw that one of the episodes that we did like a couple months ago with Trey.ai just blew up. It got caught in the algorithm, or a couple people watched it to the full lengths and started showing up.
Funny.
And like there's more views on that video now 2 months after it was like published than like the first 2 months. And in most of the videos you kind of see like a spike at first and then kind of nothing after.
Do you know why it took off?
I started playing around with like some of the titles and some of the thumbnails on some of it, but honestly, like I think it was shared in a LinkedIn conversation and comment. A couple people watched it long enough that YouTube was just like, hey, we're gonna surface this up to a couple more people.
Wow.
Those people watched it, and I'm not a YouTube expert. I'm still learning every day, but like when I get those questions from people, it's just like, hey, like we're thinking of starting a corporate podcast, and it's gonna be like the Movable Ink podcast, and it's like, all right. Like if you're gonna do that decision, like this is such a time commitment there, because even though you're a brand and you have like a presence and maybe like some of the people in the company have a following on LinkedIn, whatever, it's like a brand new content. You're like screaming into the void for so long at first. And I think of our show, like if we had given up 21 episodes in and now like it took us 5 years to get to like, we're hovering on 20K monthly listeners, but like, man, it was the journey getting there. It's a long tail effort.
I totally agree. And it's just something that you cannot go into kind of frivolously, because we have a really strong connection to our users. They love our content. And I think they trust us. And if we were to start something and abandon it, that trust would sort of be fractured a little bit. And, whatever it is, like our next research report or, roundtable event that we're inviting them to, I think that they would think we were kind of not as committed to and serious about the work that we're doing, which we are very, very committed to. And a lot of that comes from the core of our strategy team, and that they are working, first of all, they're former clients. And then they're working day in, day out with our clients, and they're constantly surfacing their insights with the team so that we're able to synthesize them and transform them into deliverables. And content is the kernel of everything that we do, whether it's display advertising or an in-person event, a hospitality event. We do have a field marketing program that's just straight up hospitality events. We're going to get a box at a game or something, or go to a concert or something fun like that. But I'd say like 95% of our events and our go-to-market effort is much more meaningful than that. And we're bringing people real hard-won insights that come directly from the front lines recently. They're credible. And then we're also going to put you in a format where you're going to be able to talk about this with your peers. And that is what people know Movable Ink for. And it's done great things for us overall.
So cool. Yeah, I feel like you've teased it out enough. Like let's have you unpack that former customer strategy team.
I'm so
Daryl, you
proud
want
of
to
this
ask that?
team.
Yeah, I mean, I see in the notes that it's a strategy team of former customers. Like, they're also employees, or are they not?
No.
Like, how did this whole thing start?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as I mentioned, I had sort of 3 phases to my career at Movable. I started on the customer success team, and I ultimately led our US customer success team. And obviously, first of all, I think that CX, all credit to them, it's the best place to really cut your teeth at any SaaS company, because you are where the rubber hits the road and you're just like living in it with the clients, and you're the face of the company. So you've got to really be able to understand the product, et cetera. So it's just an invaluable experience. But probably about 6 years into that experience, I saw that there was sort of a delta originating between the way that some clients were using our technology, and there'd be firmographically identical companies like large national airlines, for example. And one of them would have put us at the center of their Martech stack. They'd be bringing us into multi-year planning efforts. They'd be talking to us, pulling us into meetings with the CMO. Our programs would be showing up on earnings calls. It was just like a dream. And then you'd have a company that was exactly the same, sometimes spending more, doing nothing with us. It was really incongruous. And you're just like, okay, well, we can wait for somebody from airline A to go to airline B, which might happen, and they'll kind of flip a switch and great things will happen. Or we can take our destiny into our own hands. And that's what we did. And with the support of my leader, Adam Stamblick, who's now the president, I made a case to the board to create this team. And I went from leading a team of 60 customer success reps to 1 strategist, who was our retail strategist, and Julio Lopez, who's still with us today. And from there, we created engagement models to work with clients. And the gambit was, we would come in and say, free, added value, really strategic support above and beyond what you're applying Movable Ink to today. And the net effect is going to be top line growth, or, whatever it is that you're gold on. Everyone's gold on top line growth. And we will also come with solutions engineering support. And it was probably that got people excited. They're like, you've got tech resources? Let's go. And now the team is verticalized across all of the major industries that we support. So that's retail, travel, hospitality, financial services, media, and tech, which also includes online gambling, which is huge in the UK and increasingly so in the US. And they are international. We've got team leads in the UK as well. And they probably spend about 60% of their time working with clients. We've actually now got, I think, 6 different product types that they can engage on. Some of them are things like a multi-day innovation forum, where they'll come in and they'll lead that for the company. And our favorite spec for that is if it's a really large organization with different business units that we're working across. And you'll find that they themselves don't have agency to create this kind of event and bring everybody together in the way that we do. So those are a lot of fun. And then there's more sort of tactical, where they kind of come in and come out in one meeting. And we answer, over 1,000 of these tickets for the organization a year, and they've just been hugely impactful. We have a lot of data to show the outcomes for the clients that we support versus those that we don't support on retention and growth and NPS. But then they also do a really important function internally, which is they provide enablement to the entire organization. So again, we've hired this very, very skilled customer success team, and they're hired for being operational gurus at what they do. They're looking at throughput times. They're looking at reduction in errors. They're looking at, again, NPS. But they are not marketing leaders who came from financial services or travel or a media company, right? They have not necessarily sat on the other side of the table where the clients have. And so, what we've seen in the market is that since COVID, what you might have referred to before as swim lanes between industries have become high brick walls, right? And where you might have been before able to kind of borrow from retail and borrow from media and tech if you're in, I don't know, financial services. Now, the way that customers view you, the way that the markets operate, you cannot borrow from them. You need to live within the operating reality of your own vertical. You can be inspired by like the use cases and the customer experience and things like that, but the day-to-day is just not the same. And so we bring that fundamental understanding of like, what do tariffs mean for financial services, for travel, hospitality, for, for media and tech, and how does Movable Ink solve that? And the team actually creates quarterly enablement that is mandatory for everybody in the go-to-market team to attend. And it's a customized deck with real-time insights. They're working on it to like the minute they present it. And then it's got talk tracks in it that anybody on the go-to-market team is equipped to then present without the assistance of that team. So that's given us a lot more credibility in the market and, again, a lot more flexibility to respond to just the forces at large. And that's the operating reality for all of our marketing clients right now. They are under so much pressure to just keep their eye on the ball. And it's enough to just be able to execute these programs. So to have to be constantly pivoting your strategy without any support, and they don't necessarily have strategy support themselves in their organization. So it's been a real game changer.
It's so cool. Fascinating to hear, Allison. I think like one of the coolest parts of this, the strategy team of former customers is their ability to kind of stay on top of customer problems of the day, if you will, like
Yeah.
how they're able to, like, especially vertical specific, like the problems of the day are very
Totally.
specific to those verticals, even like the size of company and kind of stage that they're at, right? So, like, yeah, talk to us about like the problems of the day. Like, how have you seen these kind of evolve over the last few years? Kind of tease that out a little bit with COVID, but like,
Yeah.
what do you think is fundamental to problems of the day that maybe are kind of the same or similar across all verticals, and what hasn't changed there?
Yeah.
But like, AI is obviously like changing a lot of stuff there. You mentioned tariffs. Like, what is
Yeah.
new aside
Yeah.
from that and interesting?
Totally. I think, so just to first explain, like, where do we get this insight from? It's obviously the strategy team and then the work that we're doing with our clients. I personally also do onboarding interviews for our customer advisory board. And we've got a 50-person global customer advisory board. So I'm onboarding everyone there. Then we've got a 20-person executive customer advisory board that's made up of CMOs. And then I also ask to do an onboarding call with every new client CMO. And it follows a very structured format. And we, get a write out of that. And then I'm constantly sort of reaggregating it to pull out the recent trends. And this year, more than ever, the charge for these marketing leaders has been on efficiency. And they are not being given additional heads. They're not being given additional investment dollars, which is also incongruous with these AI mandates that they're being given. So, kind of underpinning that, I always dig in and say, what's the AI enablement strategy at your company? Are you guys being given wonderful courses and tools? And it's like, no, I'm being sent LinkedIn videos by my CEO, So I think that's been vexing, but it's been a huge opportunity for us to provide that enablement without real strings attached. I mean, obviously, we hope that then when they are ready to make a move, that they're going to turn to us. But it starts with enablement and understanding, and even sometimes for their own leadership team, right? And so we're being asked, we'll present something, and then they're like, can you guys come in and present this to our leadership team? We'd be thrilled, right? And that's not necessarily with like a straight line to an opportunity, but eventually it will be, right? Or maybe that person goes somewhere else and they take you with them, but we're happy to help. And then I think one other thing that's been really salient is that this is the first year I've ever remembered marketing leaders saying that they're on the hook for margin, right? And it just goes to the fact that that transformation from your kind of prototypical brand leading CMO, B2C CMO, to someone who is very tied to the motions of the business, that they're sort of like a CRO, CFO agent, and that they're really just hooked to demand, that pendulum is swung. That's not in process. Like that motion is complete.
Totally agree. So yeah, let's talk about this concept of B2B versus B2C versus, it was a common term at like B2 human,
Yeah,
before.
B2E, B2
Oh,
employees.
To
okay.
everyone.
Oh,
Yeah,
funny.
it was
Yeah.
a thing that like people don't talk about that anymore. But it was this whole concept of, hey, B2B is boring, but it doesn't have to be. And when you're selling to a business, you're still selling to humans.
Yeah.
And
For
I think
now.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We might be selling to agents or something.
Yeah.
Or agents will be selling to other
Agents will
agents
sell to
for,
agents, exactly.
Yeah, do you agree with that? And I think the problem that a lot of people have with this is it is kind of tough to pull off, especially if you're selling, I don't know, things that are not as sexy as maybe some B2C stuff. And a lot of companies still to this day, like B2B companies, you go on a standard SaaS website and it kind of looks the same. Kind of looks like most SaaS companies look the same. Like,
Yeah.
we'll help you, intelligence for your business or drive impact or save money or something like that. How do you think that this can come to life in a way? Like, first of all, do you agree with the whole B2B can be as cool? And if it
Yeah.
can be, like, how does that come to life in actual practice?
I mean, guys, first of all, we're like the most pink company you've ever met, and we live that. People come to our events in pink. They bring pink Stanleys. They're like living that brand, and that sort of happens spontaneously. So I definitely think you can have as much fun and as much affinity for a B2B brand. And I just personally think that the stakes are so much higher than, I mean, obviously there's large scale investments you make as a consumer, right? Whether it's, like your mortgage provider or like healthcare, like your affinity to something like Apple, right? Where it sort of feels like a part of your identity. Great. But the decisions that enterprise buyers are making tend to be bet your job decisions, right? Certainly at our price point and for the utility that we play in their marketing stack. So it's a really important transaction, and it's very, very multifaceted. And at the end of the day, every sale of Movable Ink is going to lead to a human because you can't procure our software any other way. So having that relationship and contributing to that relationship is such a critical part of what we're doing in really every part of our go-to-market motion. And actually, one of the themes that I introduced to the team this year was around the concepts from the book Influence. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that book. Yes. Okay. So I'm a huge acolyte of Influence. I've basically mandated that my teams read and reread that book like almost every other year. And this is a big influence year. And whether you are a BDR or a product marketer or a sales rep, how can you cultivate influence with our ICP strategically using the resources the marketing team gives you? And that's been a really fun challenge. But at its core, a lot of it is about like utility and usefulness and how can you be useful to your buyers. And that draws from all the other things I mentioned about like the relevant content and bringing you in connection with your peers and giving you a forum to talk about the issues of the day, things like that, which are also inherently pretty altruistic, like no one's trying to like pull anything over on anybody. And they're enlivening and they're fun. But again, it does start with a kernel of interest in the vertical and in the problem that we're trying to solve, right?
Yeah. And I think too, a lot of people, just from like my experience, the B2B buying process is actually quite emotional. There's a
Hugely.
ton of psychology and fear and this whole keeping up with the Joneses thing is also a real thing. Like, oh, my colleague at another company has this tool. We need it too.
Yeah. Or I went
And
to a
then
conference.
later on, or you go to a conference, and then later on you justify with like business logic. Like many business buyers, like me included, sometimes will like make a decision like right on the spot. We're like, I want this. Let's figure out how through business logic can we actually justify
Back into that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we back into it. So
Yes.
I think that it's I love how you're requiring that your team read Influence, because that's what you're doing like at every stage.
And I think also that piece about, your accountability to the buyer, right? We want to have, and we have successfully done this hundreds of times, long-term relationships with these buyers, right? Where as their careers progress, you are part of their toolkit because, look, they can't bring people with them because most people have a non-compete or a non-solicit. And what can they bring with them? And at our price point for studio, it's, usually average starting price at around $100K. People can find that money in their budget. And so within their first 90 days, or sometimes even before starting, they're negotiating to get us in their stack because they're saying, I don't want to work here without Movable Ink. And I also know that this is going to be how I'm going to get numbers on the board to impress whoever it is, my leader, the CMO, the board, the CEO, very quickly. And then I'll be able to do the other stuff that I want to do. That is golden. And that's something that we really aspire to day in, day out.
Yeah, awesome. Love hearing how like your team is AI first, obviously, but I feel like you're customer obsessed way before you're AI first.
Yeah.
And like my favorite quote from Cialdini's book, Influence, is that people don't ask if something is true. They ask who else believes it. And that kind of like brings us all the way back to your customer testimonial focus, the video series there. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job around that. Alison, interview has flown by. We're getting close on time. We got one last question for you. You're obviously a CMO, you're a team leader, frequent speaker. You're also a mom of two, and you're your family's CEO. You're also a big tennis player. You got a ton of stuff going on in your life. One question we ask everyone on the show is, how do you remain happy and successful in your career? And how do you find balance between all the stuff you're working on while staying happy?
Yeah. I think I have been so lucky to, first of all, work with such incredible people. And I am so thankful for that. When people look at my tenure at Movable Ink, it's really about people. I always say software is people, by the way. It's made by people for people. And, so you think you're just like working in, ones and zeros and stuff. It's a very relationship oriented role. And so no surprise, my answer is outside of work, I try and spend a lot of time with people. And I find, when I'm spending time with old friends from college or, whether it's other school parents who I really love, or a lot of clients who become very close friends over the years, that's where I get my energy and have a release. And, but again, having the privilege of really enjoying the people that I work with gives you energy like nothing else. And helps you also get through busy periods and unexpected surprises and all those oops, I made a mistakes, and that sort of really recharges you as well.
Awesome. Love the answer. Really appreciate your time today, Alison. Thank you so much for joining us. Anything you want to plug about Movable Ink? Anything exciting going on? It is going to be dropping around like August, end of August, September.
So we've got Think Summit Europe coming up in October. So go check out movableink.com for more information about that and sign up for our newsletter because you're going to get the most interesting information, all that juicy content that I was talking about. And of course, we always use a lot of Movable Ink Studio in there as well.
Awesome. And yeah, we'll link it to the YouTube series on the video customer testimonials there. I actually checked out a couple, and when I was like thinking of the question of like, you sunset the podcast, but you kind of didn't really, because a lot of the same content is just in clip formats. And so yeah, love your marketing, love the company. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, guys.
The #1 conference for marketing ops and revenue ops professionals is back again this year. Block off your calendars from October 27th to the 29th in Anaheim, California. Grab your tickets at mopsapalooza.com while you enjoy some of the highlights from last year.
This event is legit.
Mopsapalooza is different because it's a practitioner's event. Everybody learns from each other.
It's not a bunch of sales pitches.
This is the users community.
This year, we had over 300 submissions to speak. The sessions were selected and voted on by every single one of you. Marketing ops isn't just marketing. It's about so much more than that.
It's about getting inspired by each other to drive impactful change.
And when MoPros are fully aligned with broader business goals, we become the true driver of growth.
It is going to be an exciting few years ahead, and I really do believe that marketing ops is going to be at the absolute center of this.
See what's going on in the industry. You want to be on top of your game, this is the conference to come to.
It's the place to be. It's easily the best conference that you're going to go to all year.
Community is completely next level.